Oh, magic makers. Today we have a great show. Oh, we always do. You know how I do. Today we're going to focus on balance and harmony. And now I know those words for a lot of people, it seems like altruistic, right? It seems like, is that even possible? Is that only happens on, Lifetime movies? Well, sometimes in Lifetime movies, they're like clawing and scratching their way to life. Anywho, back to you. So I find so many women who get themselves wrapped around the axle for things that don't really matter, right? We're focusing, majoring in the minors. And yeah, I said that out loud. And it's not to pick on you, it's just we sometimes we need people to call our attention to things, get us out of our own way, push us out of the way of the BS that we believe to be true, believe that it's going to move the dial for us to move our goals forward. And just be honest, like some of it just doesn't matter. Some of the things we are focusing on just don't matter. And when we really break it down, it helps us to understand what we're getting so wrapped up in and how do we keep the main thing the main thing. And I remember the first time I heard that expression, like, keep the main thing the main thing. And I was like, what in the belief does that mean? I don't understand what keep the main thing means. So I'm here to tell you what keep the main thing what keep the main thing means by when it says keep the main thing the main thing. So as I'd say probably about 2 weeks ago, I posted on social media and I said, what's one thing that keeps you from living your healthiest life? And I was shocked by the number of responses that I got. And it kind of boiled down to these two areas: time and not knowing what to do. And so today I'm going to break it down. What does that mean? That we always feel like we are waiting for the right time. And the best way I can describe it, it's like, have you ever, like, if you're someone who has children, did you ever say, oh, I'm going to wait for the right time to have a kid, or the right time to get married, or the right time to move, the right time to get a new job? And how many of those things have ever happened at the right time, right? Think about last year or Rona year. And how many of you have ever, for those folks trying to get married, like that was like a record scratch, right? But you figured it out. So and the same thing for anyone who's ever had a baby. I know so many of us like, oh, I want to have a baby in June if you're a teacher, right? So that way, you have the school year off, plus you can take your maternity leave and it's just going to be fabulous. But guess what? You didn't have a June baby, you had a baby at Christmas time. And so even though you didn't have a baby in June, you figured out how to take care of your little nugget and how to make this little nugget work into your life. So that's the same thing about anything. It's like letting the chips fall where they may and figuring it out. So that's what we're going to talk about. And how it's not about waiting for the perfect time, but it's like, how do we get into action? And so there's two people that I'm going to reference that have been like instrumental in just helping me like shift my mindset so that I wasn't always kind of in this like production quality perfection cycle. And so one of the first people was Stephen Covey, and he's written several books, but I can't, oh my God, I totally blanked at the habits of success, six successful habits of healthy people or successful people. And so Stephen Covey, and I will write that in the show notes because I totally butchered the title. So anyway, Stephen Covey wrote the book. And so in the book, it's whatever you choose to be successful at, I have to begin with the end in mind. What does the end look like? And so for many people who I work with, I've always asked you, like, you need to get crystal clear on what success looks like so that you know where you're driving. If this is a GPS, you punch in your GPS, you have to be crystal clear. You can't be like, well, I think I sort of want to go on Main Street, so just put in Main Street. Or here in Massachusetts, if you put in Mass Ave runs 5 towns. So I could easily end up somewhere in downtown Boston, or I could be out 15 miles from where I want to be. So the beauty about Stephen Covey is like, begin with the end in mind. And, when we have an end point, for many people, they put so much emphasis, it's like I guess what I'm saying is when I was in high school, you did algebra and you had to solve for X. When you begin with the end in mind, that's you solving for X. That's you saying, this is what I want. And in order to get this, how do I get there? Right? How do I focus all my energy, all my efforts towards getting X? And there's a popular TikTok out there that, that talks about, people want X, but they're doing all the actions that aren't even getting them any closer to their results. And so that's what I see a lot of people doing. Or maybe they haven't defined what the end is in mind, or the end one week is, lose weight. The next week it's run a marathon. The third week is have a baby. Like, all of them are great, but they just don't line up. And we haven't given ourselves enough time to see the end come through to fruition. And so, I see it all the time. I have clients who come to me. I used to do a lot of fitness competitors. And for them, they need to put on muscle so their physique looks a certain way. And so people would come to me and they're like, yeah, I totally want to compete. I want to put some muscle on. Great. Awesome. We're going to need to add some food to your nutrition, because in order to build, you got to nourish your body. And if you keep thinking what the diet industry tells you, that you have to, to get shredded, I have to like eat less, exercise more. It's about shrinking and removing, and it just never ends. So here's where I challenge you. Like, we have to kind of think about what our end is and start to break away from some of the self-imposed rules that we put together, or even the rules that we read on the socials, right? The pressure that we put on ourselves is ridiculous. And we find ourselves chasing things in the name of perfection. I have several clients who will say to me in their check-in, they'll check off all the things, and and they did everything great. They did everything wonderful. And they're like, oh, it wasn't a good week. And I was like, but you checked off every box of everything you were supposed to get done this week. And why isn't it good? Well, this one day I had an extra piece of chocolate. I'm like, one day out of 7. All right. And, they're perfectionists. And if it wasn't, I'm going to say, quote unquote, on point, it wasn't a good week. And so we're so many times we're chasing this perfection. We put so much pressure on ourselves to be the perfect wife, the perfect employee, the perfect mom, the perfect, be perfect in our fitness. And, the list goes on and on. And if you were to say, this is what I think, and, our society just grooms us, especially women, has groomed us to think that we got to go everywhere with a cape on, that we have to leap tall buildings in a single bound. That's just not the case. And so, let me ask you, if trying to be perfect, are you tired? Because I know when I was trying to be perfect, it was exhausting. I look back and I think of all the things I did, and I'm exhausted. So maybe you are exhausted as well. And so when I talk about, life balance, I look at it as like a seesaw, right? We've all been on a seesaw. We've been on a seesaw with someone who's like equal our weight, and we've been on someone who's seesaw that isn't exactly our weight level. And we have to find a way to, find that balance. That's how I think about life as balance, is that, some days we have the marbles, more marbles on one side than the other side, but we have to figure out ways that we can move the marbles from side to side, so that we have, it's never going to be level. I'm not even going to lie to you. It ain't ever going to be level. If it's level, it's for like a moment in time. But does it have to be so lopsided? All right. So, if you're that person who's always tired and you're always looking to feel balanced, what do your marbles look like? How do you know which one to go from one side to the other? And before we go down this trail, I can hear somebody saying balance is good, like balance, that's never going to happen. Agreed. But like I said, it's not about this like level playing field. It's about, how can I keep my scale here versus here, right? How do I keep it from having these like major ups and downs? And I do believe that every day shouldn't feel like every day shouldn't feel like you don't have enough time, or you got backed over by a dump truck, right? That's not living, in my opinion. And if you're ready for this, keep reading. Because if you've listened to my podcast for any amount of time, like, I don't candy coat it. Like, sometimes I tell you, like, and it feels like a gut punch. Sometimes I tell you and you're like, oh my God, thank you. I have been waiting for this permission. So If we go back to our marble analogy, like I said, sometimes I got to take from the right to pull to the left, and sometimes I got to take from the left to pull to the right, depending on what my obligations are. And for many of us, we think, God forbid, I take 5 minutes for myself. You're the mom that doesn't bake the elaborate brownies for every damn bake sale, then, you're a bad mom, or you're the employee who is first in and last out. It doesn't have to be that way. Or you're that employee that as soon as your boss calls, you answer right away, you text right back. Sometimes you're like, you know what? Unless you are actually a rocket scientist or a brain surgeon or expecting a kidney, some things can wait 20-30 minutes for you just to have you time. Okay. I'm giving you permission. So, but when we take the pressure off and we give ourselves permission, that mind chatter starts and the guilt creeps in. And I get it. I have such a case of severe mind chatter. The mind chatter with the woulda, the coulda, the shoulda, second guessing, overthinking, overanalyzing. You completely push yourself out of the game. Like, heck, you don't even get a chance to sit on the damn bench, put your shoes on, and get ready for the game before you've already kicked yourself out of the game, kicked yourself off the damn team. Because your thinking screams, your inner voice is screaming at you, why should you try? It's not going to work. It's not for me. I've been there, done that, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you start telling yourself, or you have been telling yourself over the decades, you've been yelling at yourself inside your mind that you're never going to get off the bench. So how do you take the pressure off, right? How do you stop it? How do you make you a priority? How do you start to stop with this guilt and shame? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So the priority isn't perfection. The priority is can we get stuff done? And so when I say that, I know my like A++ personality, people like, yay, I could get stuff done. Pump your brakes, sisters, pump your brake. How do we get into momentum, continuous momentum, not in a momentum that is just like fever pitch until we burn ourselves out, right? It is, how do we get the rock up the hill and keep pushing that rock up the hill? So many of you know that I did fitness competitions for several years. And during those years of my life, I was completely out of balance. Like my scale was like, boo, maybe like we're like this was my scale. And I was either on a program or I was off a program. I was treating my body like a light switch. I was either dieting or I wasn't dieting. I was dieting or I was crazy for Cocoa Puffs. And I was either, manically measuring and weighing everything that I put in my mouth, or I wasn't. I was, it was either game on or it was like game off. And, when it was game on, I would walk into one of my favorite restaurants here in Boston, and I was a regular, and I would walk in and I would pretty much treat their menu like a shopping list. And I would just, even though it wasn't put together on the menu this way, I just assumed because they had it in the restaurant, they could make it into a meal for me. And because I would come in all the time, the chef would be like, "So Kim, you think my restaurant's like Stop and Shop?" And I'm like, kind of. And he just like put up with it. And I look back and I'm like, I cringe, right? Because it's like, you should be able to, make suggestions, but I literally was making my own freaking meals at this place. And if he wanted to choke me out, he was well within his rights. I used to put so much brain power into, is this right? Is this wrong? Is this good? Is this bad? What's it going to look like? What's it going to be like? Will my body come out? And it just sucked the fun out of everything. There was no fun. It was just, I was in such a grind. It was like getting up, get into the gym by 5 a.m. so I could get my 45 minutes of lifting and my 45 minutes of cardio in before I would go to work. And if I couldn't do 90 minutes before I went to the gym, it's a wasted trip. And so I was like, why go? Like, oh, sweet Georgia Brown. I give my props to my husband who, put up with my cuckoo. And, he used to refer to me as no fun Kim, like, because I was so manic. And it was like, everything had to be perfect. And so I was not living in balance. I was totally all about, the perfect workout and everything surrounded. It was like my workout and my gym time and my food were the center of my universe, and they were my son, and everything circled around that. And when I finally stopped competing, I struggled because even though I hated the structure and I was just so burnt out. I missed the structure because I didn't know what to do. Like, I just was like, you mean you don't get up every day and go to the gym and like, you're not sore all the time. You're not exhausted all the time. You're not constantly thinking about, oh, I got to go to the grocery store and pick up some more, whatever you're running out of for your food. Like, I was like, I was pretty lost. And, I realized, at that point, when I finally stopped competing, it's like I couldn't be that person, that machine anymore that kept going and going and going and going. So I struggled, and I ended up completely like binging because I was like, I just binged because I was like, I came out of a place of like, all I need right now is like some peace and some harmony, and I just didn't have that. It was either I couldn't have it or I couldn't have it. I could or couldn't, and it was like this light switch, and I was like, I need to find a place where my health doesn't revolve around how I look. I need to find a place where my relationships aren't put on hold because I got to get a workout in or I got a meal prep, right? I wanted to be able to have a relationship with my friends and my family where it wasn't me calculating what I could have when I went out or bringing food with me to eat in the car. Like that just I wasn't in balance anymore. And I just needed some downtime of not always thinking about my next meal, not always thinking about like what I needed to get done at the gym or what I didn't get done at the gym and I had to go back and make it up. Or, in order to earn a day at the beach with my husband, I had to go to the gym before I went to the beach. Like, come on. I needed to get off, like I need to get my marbles off one side so I can create some balance and some sanity. And so, the company that I worked for, the CEO was very big into books. And so one of the books that he had everyone read and it was like the 6 Habits of Highly Successful People. Yeah, there it is. 6 Habits of Highly Successful People by Stephen Covey. And in the book, he said that you are not a product of your circumstances, you're a product of your decisions. And I always say this, that was just like a coconut drop to the head. And I always say this, like, it all starts with a choice, right? A choice is a decision. I have to decide what it is that I want, right? So going back, end in mind, going back, is it my health? Going back, what is my outcome? And so many people tell me that, oh, my kids or my job or my whatever, and that's their circumstance. That's the circumstance they're letting define themselves right now. And that's okay. However, my circumstance was I made everything about workouts, right? So that was my self-imposed prison. And everything else completely revolved around it. And I made decisions based on what my circumstances were. And my circumstances was I had to work out. So is your circumstance, right? I got to work. I got kids, like whatever you define your circumstances, those are the decisions you're going to make. And what if you said that I'm going to decide that I'm going to get healthier, right? So how does your circumstances change when you want to take that action? And here's the thing. So many of us, have a plan for our plan, and that's not action. It feels like action because I'm writing it on a piece of paper and it feels really good, but you got to move your feet, right? So the action doesn't have to be this huge thing, right? It's not like I'm going to climb Everest tomorrow. No, it's something that doesn't require a lot of effort, but it's something that will allow you to like get the momentum underneath you, get your reps in so that eventually it feels easy. And the more it feels easy, the more that you'll be able to get it done. So what James Clear says is that, the habit is the obstacle is our obstacle. The habit we're trying to create is the obstacle. So we're trying to get what we want, but we have to learn this new habit. We have to practice at it, right? Think about when you learned a new sport. Did you like roll up to the basketball court and you're playing like LeBron James, roll up to this tennis court, swinging like Tiger Woods? No, you had to practice. Some of us sucked for a while before we got good. And then maybe some of us are still mediocre, but we're still practicing. We're still in the game because eventually you keep practicing these habits. They become something who you are. They become a part of who you are. And so for me, I had to break my cycle of practice of not doing everything perfectly and being okay with messing up, being okay with my priorities shifting. because at this time, I was trying to build my business, and I was working full time and spending 2 hours a day at the gym. It was like, I was at my wit's end. And so I had to decide what my priorities were, what they look like, and that they could shift from time to time. And I say this analogy regularly to my clients, is that there's four burners, right? And at any given time, think about when you're cooking like a big meal and you're trying to get, the best way I can describe it is like, like you're cooking for like a holiday, right? And so like, you're trying to get everything just right. And so you're like, when does the meal go into the oven, and like how long does that meal take, and then what's the next thing I have to put in, then the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, right? So it's like I always say, you only have four burners, and if you have one of those big fancy stoves, two snaps up and a tic tac for you, but I'm talking a basic stove. So it's like, what's on high, what's on medium high, what's on medium, and what's on low, right? And that's all that we can focus on, because many people try to put all this crap on the stove, and we all know that at some point we just can't keep track of everything that's on the stove and something boils over. And my fitness was like the only thing on my stove. That was it. Everything else was boiling over, and I just was like, I'll get to it. And if you want to stop getting to it, we got to start to figure out, like, what are your priorities, and know that you don't have to put on a cape to get it all done. So like I said, you have these four priorities. What are they? You decide, right? No one, like, you can decide what they are. And maybe you're in a season that like health isn't your priority. Okay. But know that you can't say to yourself, oh, I want to get healthy, if you tell yourself that you're too busy, right? It's just like, it's, and how many seasons have you told yourself that? Now, this isn't me playing guilty. This is me just having you have a come to Jesus, because, what happens is when we make it a priority, it now has to go on our schedule. And because what gets scheduled gets done. And so many people will tell me like, oh, a schedule makes me feel trapped. Every time I put something on my schedule, I never get it done. I'm going to say bull hockey, because scheduling does give you control. It allows you to prioritize. Yeah, I can speak. It allows you to prioritize, and it gives you, it gives you that control back into your day. And what I feel most people do is they try to schedule 5 million things on a day. I get it, right? You feel like you can lift tall buildings in a single bound, but maybe you can't. So the best advice I ever got, and this is right when I first started my business, they were like, all right, Kim, she's like, three things a day. Plan 3 things a day. So these are your 3 must-do things. These are 3 things that whatever project you're working on, these are the 3 things that are going to move that dial forward. Or 3 things that maybe of those 3 things, there's something that's a deadline. Like today, I'm recording this podcast and it's a Monday, and this is my deadline because I have to get it to my producers by Tuesday because they get it to me on Wednesday. So it's just, that's the way it goes. And so I'm like, it has to be done on Monday so that they can get it for Tuesday, and it's ready to go for Wednesday. So that's unmovable. But on Tuesday, it's a very different, very different set of priorities. And so when I put 3 things on it, it makes me feel accomplished because most of the time I'm getting those three things done. And if I get 2 and 1 doesn't get done, it's because maybe I underestimated the amount of time that it fits in. So your scheduling can happen like the night before, or you can schedule it a week in advance. Like I have clients who do both, right? You have to just, like I said, practice what works for you. Like I schedule at the beginning of the week. It's just because for the most part, 60% of I have unmovable things, right? I still teach classes in person. So Monday and Tuesday night, I am teaching a class at night. My day ends at 2:00 before I go and teach my class. Wednesday, I teach at noontime. So anything before and after, I got to work around that. And then, Thursday and Friday, I have more flexibility in my day. And then on top of that, I build in when am I going to work out? I build in when am I going to the grocery store, so that it just, because many of us are like, oh, the day just got away from me. No, you didn't schedule the day. That's how the day gets away from you, when you don't schedule the day. I used to have a client, and before she had kids, she would come to the gym Monday through Friday without fail, work out before work. And she was golden. And then she had kids, and you know how kids are. They get sick, they don't sleep, they completely run your schedule. And she was just always so frustrated because she'd be like, oh, like some weeks I don't even get here. Some weeks I get here 2 days a week. And she would just get so frustrated because she's like, I'm just not getting it done. And I was like, dude, like, what if you only committed to 3 days a week, 2 days a week? And if you got in 3 days, 2 days a week, you would win. And if you got in 5 days a week, you'd be in the bonus round. And she's like, wait, like what? And like, she couldn't get her head wrapped around that for the longest time. And then she finally started to like practice it and finally started to let go of what she thought needed to happen in order to get results. And she was like, it felt really good to finally hit a commitment. It felt really awesome that I made it. I said 3 days and I made it to the gym 3 days. And I was like, yeah, that's what makes you keep going. The success, the failures make you want to quit, make you want to kick the wall and be like, scream to the world, why? But it's all about taking purposeful action. And so that's why I schedule my workouts and I treat it like a dentist appointment, and that, it tells your brain, like, this is going to happen and this is how I'm going to make it happen. And, I always say, like, one of my non-negotiables is 30 minutes of movement at least 3 days a week. And if you notice how I said movement, because depending on the week, I did a whole Instagram story a few weeks ago about how I had a really crazy day and I only had 15 minutes. And I was like, I know I can get in a 15-minute quick kettlebell workout, and probably I can get another 15 minutes down the line, but I knew I needed to do this 15 minutes first thing in the morning, just in case I didn't get anything else done that day. And so it helps me to reposition my brain versus sometimes it's really hard to find 2 hours in the day. And it's rare that I have had a 2-hour workout in years. It's been a long time because I'm like, you know what? I'm taking more purposeful action, and it's about the effort, intensity that I put into the workout versus the amount of time that I'm spending at the gym. And I want people to start to realize that it's not about, it's like, there's no time clock at the gym. Like, no one's going to be like, there's not a Mercedes that like, hey girl, you were here 400 hours this week. How you doing? Like, this doesn't happen that way. It just doesn't happen that way. So I realized that when I was competing, this all or nothing, like, it didn't serve me. It consumed all my thoughts, all my brain power. And I was like, oh, I got up extra early to do this. And I'm like, how did I survive? Like, how did I survive this? Because I was not in my own mind at that time. And I just wanted to live a life that didn't revolve around my workouts and my food. Like, I was done. And so if you're listening to this thus far and you're not at this point, fine, right? That's you. We all have to come to that point. We all have to find that breaking point, because I wanted my life not to revolve around what it looked like. My life to not revolve around, was this good food or a bad food? I wanted to have some structure, but it not be a prison that I kept running into this brick wall. And so I called it what so many of you get caught up in, like, can you create a meal plan for this? And it's not on a piece of paper that I can't have. It's not going to be, I was like, if it wasn't on my good food, bad food list, I couldn't have it. And it just made me feel so stuck. And so I basically said, I needed some more flexibility, that it's okay if I have an ice cream cone on a hot summer day, right? It's okay. It's okay if I want to have a glass of wine and dessert on a date night, right? It's okay if I go to a wedding, I have a piece of cake and I have the champagne, right? I want to wake and I want to wake up the next day and not be like, oh God, I gotta go to the gym, I gotta burn it off. Like, I want to go to bed and be like, that was some great cake. That was some delicious champagne, right? That's what I want to do. And I also had to start scheduling in what I called mellow yellow time. A lot of my clients will be like, I feel so guilty when I'm not doing anything. I always have to be moving. And it's just like, we've programmed ourselves to like, go, 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 go. And if you're someone who has to go, go, go all the time, like, does it have to be a workout? Like, could you, one of my clients, she loves knitting. Could you knit? Could that give you that same like feeling of being in motion? But it's also like, taking a deep breath. Can you just like Netflix and chill, like sit outside and just enjoy a nice day and not be like, oh, I should be at a gym. I should be here. I should be here. I should be hustling, grinding, all of that good stuff. Right. It's just a plan, like reading a book for pleasure, watching, a couple hours of TV. And it's there because you scheduled it. And it's not like, at 10 o'clock at night, right? That you're watching endless TV till 2 a.m. and then you're like exhausted the next day. The other thing, if we're scheduling sleep, right? We have to get in that sleep, because so many people say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And so, or they'll say, like I said about the Netflix and chilling, the Netflix and chilling will start at 10 p.m. Well, no, like if you're trying to like get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep and you're trying to get up at a decent hour, then that Netflix and chill, like it has to be at a better hour, or it's only 30 minutes and you literally set an alarm to go to bed. Because you think about it, like, many people will ignore sleep, but for many of us, how do I say this? We plug in our cell phone every night. Our sleep is us plugging in our cell phone. We would not think about not plugging in our cell phone. We have to do our cell phone. So I want you to start thinking about how do you do that? How do you start to honor yourself so that you can actually get the sleep that you need, so you don't feel like you're always dragging butt around town. And the last piece is accountability, right? We overcommit to ourselves, and then we beat ourselves up, or we blow ourselves off, and there's no one to be like, hey girl, weren't you supposed to do this? Or you just call yourself a failure. So one of the ways that, many of us, we can be accountable to somebody else, but we can't be accountable to ourselves. So I always, it can be with a coach, or it could be with a friend. I text a friend. I have a coach and a friend, and I have a friend that I'm like, okay, this week I'm going to the gym I'm working out Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And they're like, great. And on Sunday, I'm like, yep, gym happened. Monday, gym happened. Tuesday, gym happened. Right. And then, I have a coach who, like, I have blind spots, like what am I missing? Right. Because for years I overate really healthy food, and I was like, my nutrition's on point, but I was eating too much. So with her, it's like, we have this give and take. So I'm starting to like, and after my body completely gave me the finger, I had to reorg my nutrition. And so she's really helping me to reorg my nutrition. So that's what a coach does, right? A coach doesn't be like, here, eat this. Like, no, they might initially do that, but then it's like, you have to get into how you feel, what's going on. It's like having that, it's a partnership, right? It's having that accountability. And, when I have that person, it's like, this is what I'm going to do this week. And I do it because I know someone is looking over my shoulder. Where if it's just you're like, well, I'll get it done next week. Well, we all have a way to, like, lie to ourselves. And the same thing too, like you want to schedule in the foods that you love, right? So many people want to like hold on so tight to not having anything. But it's like, one of my mentors, she calls it preemptive eating. And so it's like where, like, what causes you to like derail, like go like, blow up like Mount Vesuvius. And so for her, she's a salty person. So she likes to have like potato chips. And so she needs that salt. So every day she has Kalamata. Yes, Kalamata olives. She's like, it gives me that salty feeling. I have it every day in my salad, or some feta, and it just gives me that like feeling, so I feel satiated, so I'm not like in search of the chips. I also, for me, my non-negotiable is cream and sugar in my coffee. I have 2 cups of coffee a day. If me having cream, if like the 2 teaspoons of sugar I have in my coffee, if that's going to derail me for my day, like, what? No, but it makes me happy. I have another client, she has 3 pieces of bacon, right? And it's what she has, and it gives her sanity. So what's going to give you your sanity around foods? You're not always like, I can't have it. Like, what is it? And it's like a few strips of bacon. it's cream and sugar in your coffee, it's olives. I have another client, she, has a few pieces of chocolate every day. And I'm talking like those like Lindt squares, not like the giant, like size of your head king bars. So think about it. Like, what are the things that are going to work to help you with this sanity and this balance? And so, as we start to like wrap this up, one of my clients, she is a behavioral scientist. And so she says people are rewarded by either pain or pleasure. And so you have to decide what you're motivated by. And so as you set these goals, you begin with the end in mind, and you start to set these goals. You have to ask yourself, okay, if you told yourself, I'm going to go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'm going to go for 30 minutes at a time. And if I hit them all, there's going to be a reward. And so the reward is not food. The reward could be, maybe you're going to buy yourself a fancy new pair of boots that you love. Or maybe the reward is going to be you going on vacation, or whatever was going to blow your hair back, whatever your reward feels like. A new outfit, a massage, a movie night, something that's just going to be like, yes, this is like, I'm working. It's going to motivate you to like get your butt out of bed and just go and do the thing. The other thing could be a consequence. So one of my clients, she's motivated by consequences. So if she didn't go to the gym those 3 days a week, she would just leave a $20 bill randomly on the street. And that was her consequence. So you have to decide, like, how are you motivated? I know plenty of people start to go to those boutique gyms because if you don't cancel by a certain time, they'll charge you. And so that's a motivation, right? That's why they charge you, so that you didn't book a spot in the class, take it up, and you don't show up. There is a consequence for you not showing up. And so the last thing I'm going to talk about is, like, as we're, really kind of zoning in, it's like, okay, I'm getting clear on like what my four things are. What are my priorities? I'm putting them into a schedule. I'm getting someone to hold me accountable for the things I say I want to do. And the last thing is that sometimes we have these goals that, like, I want to lose 300 pounds, right? I want to, run a marathon. I want to do a pull-up, whatever your goal is. We have to kind of say, okay, great, here's my big goal. Now, how do I bring it down to reality? And so how do I bring it down to a 30-day goal? Because if I can, I can sustain it for 30 days. And then I'm like, okay, what happens on day 31? And then what happens on day 61? What happens on day 91, right? So that we take these in like these smaller whacks of time. So there's a saying that it says like, inch by inch is a cinch, mile by mile, it takes a while, right? So we're going inch by inch. And the best way I can describe it is, I live in Boston, so it snows here. We don't have a blizzard in 30 minutes, right? It might look like it outside, but it snows an inch by inch by inch by inch. So when I start focusing on 30-day cycles for my goal, I'm less likely to sabotage myself, because I can see, like, okay, I told myself in 30 days, I'm going to lose 2 pounds, right? So I'm just focused on, okay, what are the things I need to do to lose 2 pounds? Or I want to run a marathon. What are the things I need to do in 30 days to, bump up my mileage? So if I want to run a marathon in 6 months, so say, all right, I want to be easily running 2 miles a week, right? I'm just making this up. I'm not a marathon runner at all, but I'm running 2 miles a week. What if I wanted to do, eat more vegetables? All right, every day I'm going to be eating 1 cup of vegetables a day, right? So it's like, how do I take this big old goal and bring it down to reality so that I can see progress rapidly versus somewhere in the distant future, far, far away, right? How can I make it so that it's happening to me right now? Because I can always say that we're always going to feel guilty, right? Your guilt is always going to get you. But when we start to like bring things down to a smaller scale, it helps you to move on. And, we can, as we schedule things, it helps us to predict how it's going to happen. And it's me also setting the intention, like, this is how I want it to happen, and this is how I don't want it to happen. And it saves me from going 30 rounds in my brain. So let me ask you this. Do you want to continue to feel like you have to do all the things and be perfect and make your health and let your health take a back seat? or maybe your life, get your life back because your life revolves around the gym, or maybe you want to have a little bit more balance, a little bit more sanity. And if you do, ask yourself, like, do your actions match your end results? Can you create a schedule for the next 24 hours? Do you need support and accountability? Right? Where, how can we chunk down that goal for 30 days? And if you need something, please, please, please do not be shy. Reach out to me on the socials. I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. You can also reach me on my website. All that information is below. And, do me a favor, when you do reach out to me, just put priorities in your message. So that way I know what podcast you are referring to. So have a fabulous day, and I will talk to you next week.